Well, hello there. Welcome back to the Pacific War channel, where we cover the entire history of the Asia-Pacific War from 1937 all the way up to 1945, and all the major events that led up to it. In the last episode, we spoke about the Second Zhili-Fengtian War. Zhang Zuolin and the Fengtian Clique dethroned the Zhili Clique to assert dominance over Beijing. The KMT and CCP formed the First United Front, and they were eager to march. The Fengtian seemed to dominate, but the other warlords were still looking to win this Chinese Game of Thrones. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave comments in this video to let me know your thoughts and what you want to see in future episodes. But stating all of that, let's get on with the show. This is the Anti-Fengtian War. Hey everyone, I just want to let you know I now have a Patreon account where you can find exclusive Patreon episodes. Cool benefits like early access, Discord perks, getting to choose and vote on new content, and live hangouts with me. Please check out www.patreon.com/thepacificwarchannel for more details. The Zhili Clique had been decimated by the Fengtian Clique, led by Zhang Zuolin. The remnants of the Anwei Clique, led by Zhili, and the Betrayal of Feng Yuxiang. As the Zhili Clique regressed into central China, the victors began to dish out the spoils of war. Zhang Zuolin grabbed the former Zhili-held territories in northeastern China, while Feng Yuxiang took the much poorer territories in China's northwest. Zhang Zuolin was the obvious supreme victor of the Second Zhili-Fengtian War, and he earned the majority share of influence over Beijing. Feng Yuxiang was a devout Christian and a man who dabbled in much more radical politics. Just the sort of revolutionary politics that would garner Soviet support. The USSR took a direct interest in Feng Yuxiang immediately after the war, and from that point onwards would advise and financially aid him. The USSR also saw Feng Yuxiang as a very useful tool against the pro-Japanese warlord of Manchuria, Zhang Zuolin. It was in their best interest to keep Feng Yuxiang well supported in case they might finally be able to rid themselves of the Japanese stranglehold on Manchuria that had begun as far back as the Russo-Japanese War of 1904 to 1905. With Soviet arms and advisors, Feng Yuxiang was able to become a full-fledged warlord, whereupon he named his private army the Guominjun, National People's Army. Now Zhang Zuolin did something quite surprising to all. He named Zhili as the new chief executive of the nation on November the 24th of 1924. Zhili had no army anymore, and he was considered a neutral choice. Even the Zhili Clique begrudgingly accepted the choice. Now Zhang Zuolin made him chief executive and not president. This was implicitly done to showcase that his position was temporary and quite weak. One of the first things Duan did was call upon Dr. Yat-sen and the KMT government to come over and negotiate a possible reunification. Dr. Yat-sen had a lot of demands for such a thing, such as getting rid of the unequal treaties with foreign nations, and that a new National Assembly needed to be formed. Duan knew he could not grant such things, but he promised at least that a new assembly would be formed within 3 months. Yat-sen was beginning to warm up to this, and he said he would come over. Everything was finally starting to look hopeful for China, and then disaster struck yet again. Dr. Sun Yat-sen died of cancer. With the death of Sun Yat-sen, Zhuangzi's provincial government basically became an informal triumvirate between Zhang Zuolin, Feng Yuxiang, and to a lesser extent, there was also the Zhili Clique. Duan knew immediately Feng and Zhang did not get along, and their backers, the USSR and Japan, also very much did not get along. Thus, Duan began secretly playing each other against another.
But what do we have left once we abandon the lie? Chaos. A gaping pit waiting to swallow us all. Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder.
Feng approached the Fengtian Clique commander, Guo Sangling. Remember the crybaby during the last war?
Oh, well, you know what I say? Screw you guys. I'm going home. You dick! Later!
Well, Guo felt underappreciated within the Fengtian military, and Feng got him to secretly defect over to the Guominjun. Feng was able to do this by forming a plot against Zhang Zuolin. They were going to overthrow the warlord and install his much more liberal-minded son, Zhang Zuolin, upon the Manchurian throne. Unbeknownst to Feng Yuxiang, Zhang Zuolin was quite fed up with his activities, and he began to secretly negotiate an alliance with, of all people, Peifu. Peifu understandably hated Feng Yuxiang after the man betrayed the Zhili Clique and performed a Beijing coup, so he readily accepted an alliance with Zhang Zuolin. To continue this Game of Thrones style story, there was also major events unfolding in the Guominjun government. The KMT held its governmental base in Guangzhou, and Dr. Sun Yat-sen had been planning a northern expedition to reunify China for a very long time. To be able to do this, the KMT was forced to ally itself with the CCP, forming what is known as the First United Front. The major reason the KMT did this was to receive Soviet military support. During the military buildup for the Nationalist Revolutionary Army, Chiang Kai-Shek emerged as Sun's protege by 1922. Chiang Kai-Shek was given command of the Whampoa Military Academy, and by 1924 was one of the best contenders to take over after Dr. Sun Yat-sen. The CCP in the meantime sporadically would form revolts and protests such as the Canton Hong Kong strike. The CCP activity, and that of the left-wingers within the KMT, worried the KMT leadership that they would hurt their ability to raise funds from foreign nations. One of the leaders most worried about the CCP's influence was, of course, Chiang Kai-Shek, who sought to complete Dr. Sun Yat-sen's Northern Expedition dream. However, Chiang Kai-Shek also knew they could not hope to defeat the Northern warlords without Soviet backing, so he held back from attacking the communists, for now.
Jim is my enemy, but it turns out that Jim is also his own worst enemy. And the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So Jim is actually my friend.
The Soviets did not believe the CCP was strong enough to go it alone, so they advised the CCP to wait and grow its membership. By the early 1920s, the KMT had over 50,000 members, whereupon the CCP had only just a few hundred. So the First United Front was mutually beneficial for now. Now, as you can imagine, another key player who has emerged to this Game of Thrones scene was, of course, Chiang Kai-Shek. After Dr. Sun Yat-sen's death, there was a power vacuum within the Guomindang, and a competition between Chiang Kai-Shek, Wang Jingwei, Liao Zhongkai, and Hu Hanmin. Liao Zhongkai ended up getting assassinated just before a KMT executive committee meeting on August the 20th of 1925 in Guangzhou. 5 gunmen shot him using Mauser C-96s as he was stepping out of a limousine. Suspicion immediately fell upon Hu Hanmin, who was arrested as a result. This left Wang Jingwei and Chiang Kai-Shek eyeing another for the coveted seat of leadership over the KMT. Unlike Chiang Kai-Shek, Wang continuously called for cooperation with the CCP and was much more left-leaning. When Sun Yat-sen died, it was believed by many that it was Wang Jingwei who drafted his will. He was also considered one of the main contenders to replace Sun Yat-sen as leader of the KMT. Now, the KMT were quite divided between the right-wing Chiang Kai-Shek and the left-wing Wang Jingwei. But with the support of the Soviets and the CCP, Wang Jingwei looked like he was going to emerge victorious. That was until a major incident occurred. The coastal ship SS Zhongshan, the KMT's best warship, was captained by a communist named Li Zhilang, working alongside Soviet naval advisors. He moved the warship to Guangzhou, anchoring off Changzhou. When this occurred, Chiang Kai-Shek stated Captain Li Zhilang had done so without his orders, and that the man was lying when he said he was working under Chiang Kai-Shek's orders. Then suspicious phone calls began to emerge between Wang Jingwei's wife, Qian Bijin, and Chiang Kai-Shek's wife, Qian Jieru. Alongside all of this, calls came in from Whampoa's political director asking if Chiang Kai-Shek would be departing to Changzhou, but Chiang Kai-Shek had no idea what was going on. It seemed clear to Chiang Kai-Shek that Wang Jingwei was forming some kind of putsch in Guangzhou. Thus, in reaction to all of this, Chiang Kai-Shek declared martial law on March the 20th, 1926, and cut off the communication network in Guangzhou. Chiang Kai-Shek then took the NRA forces and began arresting communists, and he placed Wang Jingwei under house arrest. Wang Jingwei was also gravely sick at the time, and he eventually brokered an agreement with Chiang to simply go into a short self-exile by claiming he was on vacation abroad. Thus, Chiang Kai-Shek had emerged the leader of the nationalist government in Guangzhou. Now, Chiang Kai-shek's first order of business was to enact the Great Northern Expedition that Dr. Sun Yat-sen had dreamed of for so long, but this will be covered in the next episode. What's important, however, to note is that Chiang Kai-shek's first moves upon taking power was to try and get another clique leader to defect to his side. Since the end of the Second Zhili-Fengtian War, Sun Chuanfang had inherited Qi Shiyuan's forces, but he was now staring face to face with Zhang Zuolin, with a battle line around Shanghai. Then the Zhili Clique warlord was approached by Chiang Kai-shek, who sought to bring him into the KMT fold. Sun Chuanfang had many reasons to go along with this. He loathed the Fengtian Clique, and they were threatening his borders. However, he refused Chiang Kai-shek's offer, and he even killed the KMT emissaries. In response, Chiang Kai-shek killed Sun's emissaries, and a bitter hatred emerged between the two men.
No man threatens a messenger.
Oh, I've chosen my words carefully. Perhaps you should have done the same.
This is blasphemy. This is madness.
Now, going back to the situation in Manchuria, Guo Xiangling marched his division upon Zhang Zuolin's headquarters at Shenyang on November the 22nd. His siege was a complete surprise to the Fengtian forces and initially quite successful. However, the Kuantong army rushed to the scene to protect Japanese interests and halt Guo's progress, causing a stalemate. Guo's entire plan was built upon the element of surprise, and a quick seizure of authority to place Jiang Shiliang upon the Manchurian throne, and it had all but failed. Within a month's time, Guo's forces were completely surrounded and annihilated. Guo and his wife were captured on December the 24th and executed on Christmas Day. Now, despite the fact Chiang Kai-shek had failed to win Sun Chuanfang over, Sun still wanted to hit the Fengtian Clique. Upon hearing the news of the mutiny going on in Manchuria, Sun launched his own attack in November of 1925. Sun's forces drove Zhang Songzheng's forces out of the Shanghai area. Sun would then expand his rule to include all of Jiangsu, Fujian, Zhejiang, Jiangxi, and Anhui, pushing the Fengtian far north in the process. Sun and Guo were not alone in their war effort, as Feng Yuxiang also took his Guominjun forces and lashed out against the Fengtian from the northwest. All this culminated into what is known as the Anti-Fengtian War. However, when Guo Xiangling's siege failed, the Guominjun began to hemorrhage troops, both from fighting and desertion, to the combined forces of Peifu and Zhang Zuolin. It was impossible for the Guominjun to hold off both Zhang and Wu, and by January, Feng Yuxian was forced to resign as a warlord and he fled to the USSR. Japan played a crucial role, offering not just arms and advisors to the Fengtian, but literally partook in the war using air and naval units. In March, the Japanese had blockaded Tianjin, and an IJN warship bombarded the Daku forts to support the Fengtian offensive. This resulted in the Guominjun attacking the Japanese forces, which Japan treated as a violation of the Boxer Protocol. A few days later, Japanese envoys were in Beijing demanding Duan Cire dismantle the Daku fort defenses that had shot at their ships. Then a demonstration was orchestrated by Li Dajiao on March the 18th in front of the Tiananmen Gate. He demanded an end to the unequal treaties and to expel the foreign ambassadors responsible for said treaties. Soon Li Dajiao began directing the protesters to march upon the Beiyang government's headquarters. Duan Cire freaked out, believing they would overthrow the government, and he sent the military police to disperse the protesters. This led to wide-scale violence, with 47 protesters being killed and over 200 people being wounded. Li Dajiao was himself wounded, and he was forced to flee to the Soviet embassy as the Beiyang government began to hunt him down. Both KMT and CCP members were hunted down after this event, which has become known as the March 18th Massacre. Now, during the Anti-Fengtian War, the Guominjun forces did seize Beijing and ousted Duan Cire. However, as Feng Yuxian's forces were battered back, Zhang Sun, Jiang Shiliang, and Wu Peifu's forces took back Beijing soon after. When all these forces came to liberate Beijing, they also sacked the capital, causing so much chaos that it led to the collapse of the Beiyang government. Until 1928, the Beiyang government for all intensive purposes did not exist. Meanwhile, the Guominjun forces tried to flee to Shanxi, but the Shanxi warlord, Yan Xishan, was maintaining a neutrality policy and thus attacked any forces that tried to invade his territory. Awkwardly enough, Wu Peifu and Zhang Zuolin found themselves yet again together in Beijing, forced to create a new government. Wu Peifu wanted to back Cao Quan as president, but Zhang Zuolin was hinting at restoring the last Manchu emperor, Puyi, back to the throne. They resorted to forming some short-lived and quite powerless cabinets. But with Wu Peifu's Zhili Clique still in shambles, there was really nothing he could do as Zhang Zuolin made himself a dictator. The Anti-Fengtian War, or Third Zhili-Fengtian War as it is known, was over, and yet again it was the Fengtian Clique who had won the day. However, the war had a profound effect on destabilizing the balance of power. You see, Wu Peifu and Chuanfang both mobilized their armies to fight wars further north. This left both of their respected regions weaker in the south. Also, Wu Peifu's army was coming into this war quite weak, and even weaker at its end. Sun Chuanfang won his battles, but this also weakened his military. The Guominjun had been shattered, but they were not defeated, and they were now aligned with a key player who was yet to make his move, Chiang Kai-Shek and the nationalists in the south. With the southern door wide open, it was finally time for Chiang Kai-Shek to unleash the northern expedition.
Alright, let's go over everything we now just learnt. Feng Yuxiang formed the Guominjun and began an uneasy alliance with Zhang Zuolin. Dr. Sun Yat-sen died, and now Chiang Kai-Shek emerged the leader of the nationalists. The Anti-Fengtian War saw Zhang Zuolin defeated, but all the northern warlords likewise had been weakened, leaving their southern borders open for Chiang Kai-Shek to begin the northern expedition. Really hoped you liked this episode. Please leave a like, subscribe, and a comment, as it helps this small but growing channel. This has been the Pacific War Channel, over and out.